the referendum and maybe after weeks of political divide?
Well, democratic transitions are always difficult. I think we've seen that everywhere in the world. And I'm glad to see things settle down after the recent vote on the referendum. But it's been a long process. Egypt has had, I think, 12 elections, maybe 14 elections over the past 2 years. So it's been a very dynamic process, but it's moving ahead. It's moving ahead. Again, I think the Egyptian people should be congratulated for coming this far, because you can certainly look at other countries in the region who've had a much more difficult time.
Recently, I think in Western newspapers, maybe the Washington Post, everybody looked at the referendum as, or interpreting it, that the constitutional confrontation between the political parties in Egypt ended by a victory to the Islamic political regime. Do you consider it the same thing?
Well, I think much of it's up to the Egyptian people, obviously, to decide this, but I think much will depend on implementation of the Constitution, and that'll be up to the Egyptian courts and the Egyptian Parliament, the Shura Council most immediately, but the Parliament over the next few months, and the Cabinet to proceed to go forward with the Constitution. And a Constitution isn't a dead document. It's, of course, subject to amendment by the Parliament and discussion in the courts and court cases. So there'll be many opportunities to implement it according to the will of the Egyptian people.
But you don't agree with the interpretation or the argument that it was another battle won by the Islamic political parties, and so they're consolidating their position in the Egyptian arena?
Well, no, I think, again, there are, of course, issues of concern to the international community in the Constitution, and that may not accord, but again, we have to see, because it's a Constitution. It isn't implemented yet. That may not accord with Egypt's international obligations, but we have to see how it works out. And again, it'll be up to the Egyptian courts and the Egyptian Parliament to determine how the Constitution is implemented.
What are those considerations you're talking about, mainly?
Well, I know there's been concern about certain freedom of religion elements, about the role of women. These have been, I think, well stated in the international community, and certainly by Egyptian groups. There's been a lot of concern about these issues, but again, it's all in the implementation, just like our Constitution.
During the recent weeks, there was this huge political divide in Egypt, and during that time, so much criticism was directed towards the U.S. administration and towards the embassy's role. How do you look on that? How do you respond to that?
Well, let me say that in the embassy, we have contact with every element of the political spectrum here in Egypt, and I think we're quite proud of that. We talk to everybody as befits our role here, and as befits Egypt's role as a really critical regional player. So I would say that we have tried to support the democratic transition as best we can. Of course, we deal with the government. We have an enormous range of shared interests here, from science to environment to intelligence to military to the political future, to regional security. So, of course, we deal with the government that is now in the hands of the Freedom and Justice Party, because they're the majority party. So I think people sometimes mistake our dealings with the government as support for a particular political party. But let me assure you and your viewers that the United States has been resolutely neutral in this campaign and throughout the democratic transition. Again, it's up to the Egyptian people to decide who they want to represent them.
So do you think Dr. Mohammed al-Baradei didn't have the right to express his frustration from the U.S. Role in the recent political divide?
He has every right to express his frustration and to say anything he might wish, and we talk to Dr. al-Baradei frequently. I would hope we could change his mind, but he certainly has the right to say anything about us or about his own government. I mean, that's just part of the political process.
Yeah. There was this article, the analysis written by Mr. Tom Friedman, maybe a couple of weeks ago, and he assumed, or maybe predicted that we're looking into a more resemblance with the Pakistani political arena. You've been to Pakistan. I'd like to get your take on that.
Egypt and Pakistan have absolutely nothing in common. And I think the point, absolutely very little in common. And Egypt is an entirely different country than Pakistan, and I'm convinced that it has an entirely different future than Pakistan has. I think what the point that Tom Friedman was trying to make is it's important because really he was comparing Egypt to India, where they have done a very successful job of integrating ethnic minorities, the huge numbers of religions they have. They all have an equal opportunity in the Indian political life and particularly in Indian economic life. And I think he was trying to say that Egypt should have that future ahead of it. That these groups have to be fully integrated, that the rights of the minority have to be respected, even with majority rule.
As the American ambassador to Cairo, you definitely get reports and monitors of the media in Egypt. And very recently, we started using some words that we never used in our culture before, like war streets, like potential civil war and stuff like that. How do you assess such terminology?
I guess I would say that I've been struck not only in the press but in some political quarters about what I would call very alarmist rhetoric. And it's frightening in some respects. I don't think, and from what I've seen in my year and a half here, it is not supported by what I've seen of the Egyptian character, but there is a lot of alarmist rhetoric, and of course it feeds back into the international press. From a practical standpoint, I'm very concerned that it discourages tourism and investment, because when people say, oh, Egyptians know their own country a lot better than we do, and if they think there's going to be civil war and blood on the streets, then we won't go there on our next vacation and we won't invest $100 million there. So I think it has a very immediate impact, quite apart from the political impact.
But you don't find this accurate when you compare it to the reality that you've been going through for the past year and a half in Egypt?
No, quite the reverse. I've been struck with the enormous degree of social cohesion in Egypt. I mean, you've been through all these elections, you've been through an extraordinarily difficult transition. The military was in charge and handed over power peacefully. I've been impressed not by the degree of civil war and chaos, but by the degree of social cohesion in this society.
Let us talk about economy.
Yes, sure.
A few months ago when we talked to you, you had such a positive outlook for the Egyptian economy. Do you still have the same outlook after all the difficulties that we've been going through?
Yes, I still have a very positive outlook, and after we're through, I'm going to tape a presentation to a big convention in New York, where Egyptian firms are going to participate, because I have a very positive long-term outlook. That hasn't changed. I think Egypt is going through some difficult times right now. I think, like any society, Egyptians will have to decide how they're going to take care of their poor, how they're going to subsidize bread and fuel, how they're going to promote investment. Those are all very important things, and certainly the current political unrest has had a unfortunate effect on tourism and investment. But yes, I see American companies, I tell them this is an excellent long-term investment and that they can make money here.
When we speak about economy and the Egyptian-U.S. relations, we have a civilian branch of the aid and the military branch. How do you think the Egyptian public opinion should look on every political occasion that sometimes we find signals from the Congress that everything will be reviewed? The public opinion here in Egypt feels like this is like pushing Egypt or putting additional pressure on Egypt to take a certain political stance.
Well, I think that's unjustified. I know Egyptians are concerned when they read in the paper about Congressman so-and-so or Senator so-and-so and what he or she might say about aid to Egypt. But really our record on this has been extraordinarily strong over the years, and on military assistance, and let me come to civilian assistance in a minute. Our record on providing military assistance has been very beneficial for both the United States and Egypt. I mean, certainly we've gotten very considerable advantages out of our cooperation with the Egyptian military. On the civilian assistance, regrettably, our disbursements have slowed a lot in the past year, largely because of what's called here the NGO issue, which did have a very unfortunate effect on public opinion, both among in the press and in our Congress this year. But I hope the administration has said repeatedly that it's committed to assistance with Egypt, that it values our friendship with Egypt, and is going to pursue this through the Congress.
Both on the economic and the political sides of the U.S.-American relationship, do you think there are new guidelines for the administration with the second term of President Obama?
In the assistance area, our first goal is to try and support Egypt's agreement with the International Monetary Fund, because I think there's wide agreement that that will be the key, or the first important step in economic recovery here. But I would not see a very significant change in our assistance relationship in the second Obama administration. Again, the administration has said, despite what individual congressmen or senators might say, that they're committed to the assistance relationship.
Maybe we should expect the second Obama administration to give us a help with the international loan, because from what I know is that everybody is holding nowadays the pace for this loan.
Well, certainly the Obama administration has been in constant contact with the IMF during the course of these negotiations. The United States is the largest single shareholder in the IMF, so of course we have influence with the IMF, and we've been working talking to them frequently about the Egyptian situation. But I think it's not just the United States. I think the international community, the international financial institutions, Egypt's liable to get around $1 billion from the African Development Bank, for instance, when the IMF agreement is completed. So it's a package. It's a package not just of the United States, but of donors from elsewhere, and the World Bank and other international financial institutions. It's important to get this done, because I think it'll be a signal to markets and investors that Egypt has moved into a new phase.
Are there any kind of